Welcome everyone to our class on iyun b'Gemara, how to plummet the depth of the Torah and understand it. We've done two parts. One part is all the technical aspect. Now we have to do a real live example inside. And then what the Ramchal says, his chiddush is you have to convert the text into these basic logical models. Okay, so that's going to be a task. But so first we're just going to go through it more or less in a organic way as we're used to doing, except with a little charting. And then at the end we're going to have to format it the way the Ramchal does. But let's first understand what the text says and where we're holding it. Very, very exciting. The pasuk that we're concentrating on is the pasuk that says when an animal destroys a field, whether he steps on it or he eats it, so the owner of the animal has to pay meitav sedeh meitav karmo. Has to pay with the best of his field, and Rabbi Akiva said that means you estimate the damage. $100 worth of damage, and then if you want to pay in land, so you have to pay with the absolute best of your land. Very good. We're holding in a problem that Baya brought up, because one pasuk that we just read says you have to pay with the best of your land. We have another pasuk that says you can pay for, albeit bor, but it also goes all over the place, kesev or shavik kesev afilu subin. So when it comes to paying with shavik kesev, the equivalent of money, movables or anything that's worth money, so there you can pay with the absolute worst. When it comes to land, it's unusual, because if you're going to pay him the $100 on land, you have to give him the absolute best. So what's the difference? So we had 5 answers, and we're really going to now concentrate on 2 of those answers, because these 2 answers were never pushed off by the Gemara. So the first answer was of Rev Papa, and Rev Huna read Rev Yeshua. We're just going to call him Rev Papa because I don't want to get Rev Huna, who's coming later, mixed up with him. Rev Huna Bereda Rev Yeshua is on the lower end of the Amarayim, and Rev Huna is all the way on the top of the Amarayim. So we're going to call it Rev Papa and Rev Huna. So Rev Papa says, he explains this contradiction by saying, Kol mila de meitafu, Kol mila meitafu. All movables are called good. Because you'll always be able to sell them. But our land is not good, because you won't be able to sell it, because you're limited by the amount of customers. So your demand is limited, because you only have the few people that are around you. So therefore the Torah said, "Lei save lei meitav." If you're going to pay him in land, you must give the nizak the best, so that they will be lichpots ala zvine, that the few buyers around will be excited to buy it. And of course the nizak just wants the money for the damage. He doesn't want doesn't necessarily want land. He doesn't, or non-money things. So that's what Reb Papa said. So the way that we're learning Reb Papa, we'll see in a second according to the Riv, is even though Kesev is not mentioned here, Kesev, best land, and movables, even subin, are equal payments. In other words, the mazik can pay with either one. He can give back money for his damage, he can give back the best land for his damage, and he can give back movables. Oh, what's the difference between land, you have to give out the best, and movables, you can give anything you want as long as it has that $100 value, because land has a limited amount of buyers. So the Torah said give the best land. That's the shita of Rev Papa. All 3 of them are equal. Okay. The Gemara then has this next question, which is associated with the original brisa that between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. And the question is, Meitav, is that a relative or absolute term? What does it mean, absolute? Is it Meitav according to world standards or Meitav according to personal standards? So we said if a person has his worst is equal to the best of the world, can he give his worst? Because that's equal to the best of the people around him, because that's equal to the best. Is that Meitav? Or no, he has to give his AAA stuff, which no one has around him, which is super, super duper Meitav, to pay back for the damage when he does the damage and he wants to pay back. So that was a question, and the Gemara is done with it. And in the end, the conclusion is that it's a subjective best. So if he can't give, even though his worst is equal to what all the neighbors call best, he has to give his best of the best. Okay, now that's a very long sugya with a lot of ramifications, which we didn't do, but it's not applicable to our problem, but it's a big, big sugya. Okay, then all of a sudden at the end of the sugya, here's my line, 2 dots there. At the end of the sugya, there's no 2 dots in the Gemara. All of a sudden, Rav Huna comes along, and he says, "Oh, kesev o meitav." That's what he says. So Rashi tells us that Rav Huna is really arguing with Rav Papa. The placement of this word Omar, this is one of the things that tells us. According to this Girsa, Rav Huna Omar, you only say Omar at the end when you're fighting with another opinion. Rav Papa Omar and Rav Huna Omar. Rav Papa said what he said, now Rav Huna has a different position. If Rav Huna was starting a new issue, it should have said Omar Rav Huna. So Rashi says that this is a continuation of the problem between the Pesuk of Meitav and Kesev and Shavi Kesev. So Rav Huna says, O Kesev, O Meitav. Then, in other words, you have to pay for you only have 2 choices, not 3. Rav Papa said you have 3 choices, Kesev, Meitav, and Shavi Kesev. Rav Huna says you only have 2 choices, that's Kesev and Meitav. So Rav Nachman asks him and says, wait a minute, there's 3 choices. There's Yashiv also. And he says, no, that is only when you don't have Kesev and Meitav. Okay, so he argues with Reb Papa. Reb Papa says that Yashiv l'Rabo Shavi Kesva Fil Subin means it's an equal alternative that the mazik can use to pay for his damage, and Reb Huna says no, not so. It's only when you don't have Kesef and Meitav that's the only time you can use Shavi Kesef Fil Subin. Gemara says, wait a minute, isn't that obvious? I mean, it's better to get something than nothing. It says, no, it's not so obvious, because you might have thought that Rav Huna would have said that not only can't you use it b'diavad, you can't use it. In other words, if you have Shavi Kesef, or actually the Torah, the Torah didn't write Yashiv to Rabba Shavi Kesef, so Rav Huna would have said, no, the Torah says you can only use Kesef and Meitav, and if you have Metaltal, and you have to go out and translate it into money, okay, and then give him money because it's worthless. Kamashman, the Pasuk said Yashiv to say, no, if you don't have it, you can use it. Okay, so that's where we're holding in this issue. We have the Gemara ending with 2 answers about what you can pay back. One, Reb Papa, you can equally pay back with Kesef, Shavi Kesef, and Meitav. And it says, no, Shavi Kesef, if you assume, and that's only if you don't have Kesef and Meitav. So those are the 2 positions that we're left with. The Gemara doesn't eliminate this one. The Gemara doesn't eliminate Reb Papa. So that, of course, is going to cause a lot of difficulty. One of the things that we're trying to do is understand, well, what do people talk about? Okay, what's called a problem. So this is a problem because we're left with 2 answers, and it's a halachic problem because we don't know what to do. You can't do both of them. It's a suffix. The Gemara leaves us hanging. So we said at this point we have the Rif comes in. Look at him 1 second, and he says the halacha is like Rev Papa. And that's this yellow column of the Sephardic schools. And then we have Rabbeinu Tam. He says the halacha is like Rev Huna. Okay, so we're trying to understand what are the factors that push them one way or the other. Since the Gemara does not tell us which way it is, how do they know which way to go? Well, I up your hand and say it's a suffix. I don't know. But they say emphatically, the Rif says emphatically it's Reb Papa, everything is equal. And the Rabbeinu Tam writes in Sefer Yoshua emphatically that when it comes to Nezikin, you can only use Shavik Kesef if you don't have Kesef or Meitav. So that's what we're holding. Okay. Now again, other sheetas we'll pick them up as we go. Okay, so last time we got together, we did the Tosfos. Okay, but just as a quick review, here is Rev Pop. Here's the Rif. 1 second, I just have this and have to move on the side. Okay, here's the Rif. The Rif very briefly says, "V'hod in ipsadei meitav karmo hani mile heichadi hivle mikarke." Aval idi hivle mitaltale kol mididi hivle meitav ninhu v'filusubin. So the Rif says the Torah, when it talked about meitav sadei and meitav karko, said the best, but that's only when it comes to land. But when it comes to metaltalin, you can give anything. Like whom? Like Reb Papa, right? And he says the following line: "Va'afal gapligi Rev Huna v'Rev Asi." Even though Rev Huna and Rev Asi argue with Reb Papa, or kaimalan ka Reb Papa Rev Hu Red Rishua di basroi ninhu. There's the important part. He now tells us why the halacha is like Reb Papa, because Reb Papa is a basroi. He's in the chain, the way down on the bottom. Okay, let's get that for us. Ourselves of that. Okay, here's the Tanai. We'll just go down a little more. We'll see the Amarayim. Here's Rev Huna, very high up. Rav and Shmuel are on the borderline there. They're like Tanaim. They can't argue. Rav Huna already is an Amara, but he's very, very close. He's a student of Rav. And all the way down here, like 150 years later, something like that, 140 years later, you have Reb Papa. Okay, and Rev Huna B'Red Yeshua. Okay, so there, the rule is that when it comes to Pesach, we always Pesach according to the chronologically later authorities, which is Reb Papa, and that's what the Rif says. Okay. Okay. We'll skip Rashi. Rashi's mashma that he's also holding like the Rif in a few places, but last time we met we did Tosfos. And it's also very important to see the form here. Okay, this Tosfos were not just Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam, as we saw, was the first Balei Tosfos. I didn't put the chart back again. Okay. Oops. Wow. What's going on here? No, that's not what I want, and that's not what I want either. I have to get my bearings here. I didn't make a link, but okay. Rabbeinu Tam, Rabbi Yaakov ben Meir, is 71, okay? We're going to be dealing with the Rosh. He's already 100, almost 100, he was born 150 years later, okay? So, and is, well, we have the Ran is still a Rishon, but we're getting on the borderline of the Achronim after 1300. So anyway, a lot of Balei Tosfos, The Bali Tosfos Shalanu is what we call our Tosfos. Who exactly put it together, you can find out. I don't know exactly all the history. I looked a little bit, but it's rather complicated, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to see, we're looking at Rabbeinu Tam in the eyes of the Bali Tosfos, because you see the Bali Tosfos is going to be quoting Rabbeinu Tam, going to be quoting the Rif. So this is after Rabbeinu Tam, Tosfos saying, look, let's look at our masters that came before, the Rif and Rabbeinu Tam, let's compare them, and let's see what they say. So that's exactly what they do. Here. And here's the Tosfos, right? Here's the Tosfos. He first brings Rashi, and he says that Rashi says that Rev Huna, by the way, this is on Rev Huna, right? Now remember, Rashi brought, I just want to bring one other point. Rashi brought up that there was a problem that we mentioned right in the beginning, that there was this interlude. In other words, we had the answers, we had a biased question between Meitav and Shavik, and then we had 4 answers ending with Reb Papa. Then there was this tangent, not really a tangent, but there was this, let's call it a tangent, talking about how do you consider Meitav? Is it objectively or subjectively the best? And we had Rav Huna popping up, and Rashi explained that the break was necessary to finish off the Brisa. Oh, that's what he explained, but that's a problem. That's one of the problems that we have to deal with in understanding this text. Why is there the break? If Rav Huna really is talking about Reb Papa, then he should have been brought with the other 4 answers, or brought after or before Reb Papa, since he's previously stated. So to say that this is the same argument has that problem. Why is there the break? And Rashi answered that. Tosfos says, not Rashi, but speak l'sayim divrav ad lo. Again, lo, wow. You just have to be involved in the piece to know what that means. That means that first Rav Huna said, O Kesev O Meitav, and then Rav Nachman said, what do you do with Yoshiv? And then Rav Huna came back and said, well, Yoshiv is when you don't have Kesev and Meitav, correct? So if Rav Huna was going to explain the 2 Pesukim, Yoshiv, Kesev, and Meitav, then he should have just said Kesev and Meitav. And if you don't have, do Shavik Kesev. Why did Rav Nachman have to interrupt? So you have to say that really, if he's explaining the 3 variables in those 2 Pesukim, that he was going to do everything, and Rav Nachman interrupted, which is, again, a weak point in saying that Rav Huna is talking about Rev Papa's issue. Okay, so we have 2 weak points to against those people that say that Rav Huna is talking about the same issue. 1, the break, and 2, that Rav Nachman should have held his horses, and Rav Huna should have just explained exactly what he meant. This is how I learned the 2 Pesukim. Kesef is equal to Meitav, and Subin is only if you don't have both. Okay? You with us?
I am here. I'm here.
Very good. Okay. I'm giving a big review again because it's all necessary because we're going down into these things. Okay. So because of that, now Rebbein in the Tosfos we did last week, but because of that, this weakness of Rev Nachman and the unstated, I mean, in other words, the Tosfos did not bring down what Rashi really said about this break, but because of these problems, Tosfos tells us Istigar say Omer Rav Huna v'amis nisan koi. Now, when we say Omer Rav Huna, it means an original statement, and now he's commenting not on the verses, but he's commenting on the Mishnah. The Mishnah said Meitav ha'aretz. That's what our Mishnah said. Tzar Shavashem, Shedarkan Lahazik, Shmirsan Alecho, Kesezik Kavamazik, L'Shalom, Shulim Ezik, B'Meitav ha'aretz. That was our Mishnah. So he wanted to say that don't think our Mishnah is dafka. The only thing you can pay back when you do damage is Meitav ha'aretz. So it's not so. You can also do Kesef. At which point Rev Nachman now doesn't interrupt. He says, wait a minute, there's another alternative. And so he said, no, that's not an alternative, only when you don't have Kesef and Meitav. So if he's talking on the Mishnah, you don't have to say Rev Nachman is interrupting. If his aim is to explain Pesukim, the Pesukim have 3 variables. Kesef, Meitav, Kesef, Shava Kesef, and Meitav. If he's on the Mishnah, he's just explaining why the Mishnah only said Meitav. That was his aim, and a good question is, why did you say it's Lavdafka and the only thing left out of the Mishnah was Kesef? So he explained to him, because I hold that that's that Shavuot Kesef is only when you don't have Kesef and Meitav. So there, we've gained a point in the Gemara, in the coherence of the Gemara. In other words, in the Seder of the Gemara now, if we say that Rav Huna is not talking about the Pesukim, so then we don't have to explain why there was this whole interruption. Okay, fine. It was the Brisa, it was everything, but it was the subject of the Pesukim. Really the subject was the Brisa, and the Brisa had the whole machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. And then once we said it was how much was it, in what species can the mazik pay with? So then we had the Pesukim, and after that we had more to talk about the Brisa. And now we have a new point. It's a related point, of course. No one said no, but we don't. We solved the problem of the break, because that was all involved in the Brisa of Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel and the Pesukim, and now we're having a new problem here, because our Mishnah doesn't say what we just learned from the Brisa and all the Pesukim. It says something else, and we do have a chiddush here of Rav Huna. So we saved that step. Okay, we saved the step by the girsa of Omer Rav Huna. We saved the step of having to explain the break and having to explain this, or to say the dochik that Reb Nachman had interrupted. Okay? Now, we're going to get deeper into this, but this is just a review of what we did. Okay, so that was Tosfos first brings Rashi, and he tells us there's two girsas, and fine. We don't know the significance of that more than it solves a problem. You don't have to say Reb Nachman interrupted. It's about the only significance that we could see, unless you can see a bigger significance, but that's all it does. Now after he brings that, he brings Seif Alfas. Now last time we looked at Rev Alfas. He doesn't have the words there, Rav Huna Omer or Omer Rav Huna, correct? It's just he has a halachic summary of the Gemara as it travels through the page, and he tells us the following: the Rav Huna Bered Rav Yeshua, that what? Here, we'll just look at it. Okay. All he says, so we don't know what his girsa was, correct? He's just explaining to us the din of Meitav, because as the Gemara flows, he has to tell us what's the conclusion. So he says Meitav is only limited to land. That's it. And the halacha is like Reb Papa and not like Reb Huna. That's all he tells us. Okay. But we don't know anything about the girsa problems. Okay. Tosfos, after bringing Rashi and explaining that there is a girsa problem, brings Reb Alfas, and Reb Alfas, as he says, has 2 points here, and that's why I break this up, because when you just read it as one line, you don't have the sensitivity, and all the people are being very sensitive to the text. They do it all in their head, of course, but we're doing it visually. Okay, anyway, Reb Alfas says, the Rav Huna Reb Yeshua Reb Papa da I'll pligia dadi, the Rav Huna Dacha. That means Reb Papa and Rav Huna Reb Yeshua over there are arguing with Rav Huna here. Okay. Va'afal gav de pligi Rev Huna v'Revasi, right? So he makes a clear statement that definitely Rev Huna and Revasi, who came a little later on, they said Kesef is like Karka, okay? But they're arguing with this for a Papa, because the Rev Huna says you can, and Revasi later on they're going to say that you can only use Shavuot Kesef when you don't have Kesef and Meitav, and Rev Papa says you can use it equally. So Reb Alfas tells us there is an argument, right? Now, if there is an argument, the text that said Omer Rav Huna should be preferable, correct? I mean, Rev Huna Omer, I'm sorry, Rev Huna Omer, or Rev Huna Omer. When we said that the Omer is afterwards, it means argumentation. So since he holds as argument, then we can infer from that he's holding the text that says Rev Huna Omer, although he doesn't say the text, but he does say that there are arguments. So at one point, he agrees that there's an argument here. It's not like a new issue. If it was a new issue, could it be that they weren't arguing? Maybe. But he says, yes, they are arguing, and the chara about the same issue. The inhu, that means Rev Huna, Rev Shua, and Rev Papa, they hold kol mile meitavu v'fil subin. And Rev Huna disagrees. He says the lo havi meitav ela kesev o karka, and you can only use subin if you don't have them. Good. That's point one that he brings up, the Tosfos and Rev Alfas. And point two is the Pesach. He holds like Rev Papa, Rev Huna, Rev Yeshua. Why? Important point. De Basroi. So that's the Tosfos summary of Rev Alfas. Then the Tosfos goes to the third position, which is Rabbeinu Tam. And he tells us that Rabbeinu Tam does not hold like Rev Alfas because he holds that there's three dinim, and the first one that he brings is Nazikin o Kesef Meita v'ileisle afilu subin. So who's he holding like? Rabbeinu Tam?
The Rif is holding like Rabbeinu Tam?
The Rif is holding, no, I'm sorry. We have Rev Huna and we have Rev Papa, just to brief it. The Rif is holding like Rev Papa, but here the Rabbeinu Tam tells us the halacha in the Zikin. Who is this Rev Huna?
Right, so he's saying that Rabbeinu Tam is saying I kesev I meitav. And if he doesn't have, he gives subin. Right, so
Yep.
that was like like Rav Huna.
Exactly. I just want to make sure that you're with me. I could talk. No, I could. There's so much here. Good. That's it. Simply. So here we see that Rabbeinu Tam holds like Rev Huna, right? That's Rev Huna's position. Kesef Meitav, and if you don't have, he doesn't hold like Rev Papa. Fine.
Right.
Okay, we went through the other variables, which we don't need now. I mean, they're, of course, important because Tosfos, again, sees all of Shas. So whenever, as I told you with the web, you adjust one string, you're going to now realign other things. So when you realign this Nezikin with Rev Huna, who knows what ramifications are, and he's going to tell us all these other cases of Poel and Balchol. But we're not going to get into that. We did that last week. Now, and we're going to skip the Ran, okay, and we're going to go right to the Rosh. Okay, now why did I skip the Ran? I skipped the Ran because he's going together with Rabbeinu Tam, with the Rambam. So before we go to the next level, we're going to deal with those, but I wanted to go right to the Rosh because as we saw, the Rosh is a very late Rishon. And let's watch what he does in comparison to what we just saw at Tosfos, and let's see what type of problems he deals with. Okay, so we saw that the Rabbeinu Tam just really laid out for us that the Rif and Rabbeinu, the Tosfos we just read laid out that there was a difference between the Rif and Rabbeinu Tam halachically. Okay, and now let's watch the Rosh, what he does. Okay, so now you're on after that. Always short introductions. Yeah.
Rav Huna Omer, I kesef I meitav. Pirush Rashi. I'm reading it from the screen, and I don't have the safe in front of me.
No, no problem.
Shabbalat Haretz Kroy de El. So right, Rashi says, "V'lo hispek l'sem d'var v'ashik shel Rav Nachman v'az v'az Omalei." The Kroy hachim metarti. Imein like kesef I meitav kol mile meitavu. v'le matzi amalei zil tarach lezavin. The islay kasav ha'meitav lo yitin lo shava kasav. V'chein kasav Rav Alfas. So he's saying, Rashi is saying that we're answering the theory before, and that Rav Papa did not have a chance. Rav Huna rather. Rav Huna did not have a chance to finish until Rav Nachman asked him.
Good.
And he explained to him that if he doesn't have kesef or meitav, then kol mila meitavu, and he can't tell him go and sell it. But if he has kesef or meitav, he cannot give him shava kesef. So in other words, he's saying it's a hierarchy. You have to first give kesef or meitav. If he doesn't have, then he could give him the shava kesef.
Shava. Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
And he's saying the same thing.
Exactly. So the Rosh is putting together Rashi and Rav Alfas. Okay. He's going to explain Rav Alfas in 1 second. But just a few little notes here that Rashi himself never said that, Rashi did say that Rav Huna is also coming to explain the psukim that were brought above. That Rashi did say. But this second piece, below his speak l'saim, the Rav Achikshalo, Rav Nachman, you see, Rashi never said that. That was Tosfos. Okay? Right. At points because there are important differences to see the style again. But you see, the Rosh incorporates what Tosfos says right away into Rashi. Okay, he says that when Tosfos brought Rashi, he also said Shaboy l'Torah Kroy Delel, which Rashi did say. But Tzarech Lomar, says Tosfos, Shalo his speak l'saim divravat Shalo Rav Nachman. Okay, so that was Tosfos's interpretation on Rashi. Okay, the Rosh already incorporates that as if that's Rashi himself. Okay. Now I'm not going to make a difference here about the two, but it's interesting to note that in the way that we learn is that we accept the premises of the generations before us. Okay, and that's an important thing in the Masorah, and that's the Rosh. The Rosh says simply, okay. In our analysis, what Rashi said and what was said of Rashi, because we know sometimes that can cause differences. Okay, so after it was interrupted by Rav Nachman, this is all Tosfos. Rashi never said this. Okay, in other words, all Rashi said Shabola Krol Delael, right? And this, below his speak l'saim, it was all Tosfos. And so you see how the Rosh is also a, how can I say, an abbreviator? No, a summarizer. He's paraphrasing, okay? Because he believes that he understands that this is written for a person who is at a high level of learning, who already read Rashi carefully, who read the Gemara, of course, carefully, okay? And he just has to quickly summarize, and he expects you to know what Tosfos said already, and he expects you to know, of course, what the Gemara said in Rashi. But for us, we have to be very, very clear about what was said and what was commented upon. Very good. So he put everyone together. He put Rashi together with this, definitely what Rashi did say, that Rav Huna is fighting with Rav Papa, and that we have to say there was an interruption of Rav Nachman before Rav Huna could finish his explanation. And then Rav Huna said what we said as the Gemara ran, okay, you give Kesef and Meitav first. If you don't have it, then you can give Shavik Kesef. And this, by the way, he adds, is what Rav Alfas says. Let's read it further. Now he's going to explain Rav Alfas. That what?
The Rav Papa, the Rav Huna, the Rav Yeshua, Pligi ad the Rav Huna, the Savri, the Chol Mila Meitav, Uvafilu Subin. So Rav Papa and Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua held that everything is Meitav, even Subin, meaning even Metaltalin is called Meitav.
Correct.
Upastak, the Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua, the Inun Basroi. But the psak of the Rif is like Rav Papa and Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua, who are Basroi.
Because they're Basroi. He gave the Pesach like Rav Papa and Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua because they were Basroi.
Because Basroi. So in other words, he's saying that everything is all on one level. that everything is called meitav.
Exactly. And he didn't hold like Rav Huna. Now, if I ask you, which no one is saying, well, why would you think to hold like Rav Huna?
Why would you think to hold like Rav Huna?
Right. Like, remember the Rav Alpha said here, Va'afal pi the pligi Rav Huna v'Rav Asi kaimelan karev Papa devasru. Interesting. What is an afal pi in Derek Tefunos? It means the reason you would have said the opposite, right?
Well, right.
If it was...
Well, let's go back and understand. Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the Rav Yeshua, maybe he doesn't like the teretz on the steer and the psukim.
Who doesn't like?
The Rishonim.
Maybe you were saying Rav Alfas didn't think that was a good,
right.
That was the simplest understanding. So then why do you have to say that the only reason that he's Pesach like Reb Shua?
I meant the other way around.
Maybe exactly.
Rav Huna's teretz to say that the teretz really is that the psukim that are saying that it's one or the other really means to say that if you don't have one, then you do the other. Maybe that's not as logical as saying that really it's the psukim will come and tell you that they're all the same. So even though he would want to pass them like the first ones, like Rav Papa and Rav Huna with Rav Yeshua, because that's more logical, but since Rav Huna is Basroi, he's going to go with Rav Huna.
No, Rav Huna is not Basroi, chronologically. Who again, you were right, I think, the first time. Who were the later... Yeah.
So Rav Papa and Rav Huna with Rav Yeshua are saying everything is the same. So let's go through the logic again. We'll do the logic either way. Rav Papa and Rav Huna with Rav Yeshua, who are Basroi, are not as logical as Rav Huna, who is a Kadmon, who came earlier. Now let's go figure out, let's try to apply and see which one is more logical. But so what we would have to back into and say is that Rav Huna, who is saying that the steer in the psukim is answered by saying that you have two levels. That first you're supposed to pay either kesef or meitav, and then if you don't have that, then you can pay even metaltalin. He's saying that's really more logical than saying that everything is all the same, except that we're stuck with Rav Papa and Rav Huna and Rav Yeshua, who are Basroi, so we're going to pass like them.
Very interesting. Very interesting. No, you 100% sense. And I would add why it's more logical to say Rav Huna. Okay. Now remember, I'm going to add to your theory, even though, by the way, the Rosh is not going to. I don't believe he holds that, but in the Afal-Gah, but it doesn't matter. Remember, if we remember our setup, we always held that Kesev was better than excuse me, just give me 1 second. Yeah, there was a revolution, we said, a Copernican revolution, we said, with Rev Papa, because Rev Papa put land under Shaveh Kesef, right? His chop was, we always thought that land was better than Shaveh Kesef. That's a simple peshat. If I ask you, what would you rather have, if you're not going to get money, what would you rather have, land or Shaveh Kesef? So land is, much more desirable than Subin. Subin, what can you do with this stuff? I mean, you have a whole house full. Who wants Subin? How many people are around? Okay, so you can go somewhere and you can dump it. But land, everybody wants. Even bad land, you can build on it. You can do something. Land is always intrinsically valuable. It's desirable. So Rev Papa made a big revolution to say that here the Torah holds that land is worse than Shaveh Kesef, and only the best land is good, and he gives us a svara because he switched the factor. Okay, the bechina, as we learned in Derech Tfunos. In the bechina of getting your money back easy, It's easier to get money back from a talton than it is for land. But as far as the bechina of desirability, if I ask you simply, what would you rather have as payment? Land, even worse land, or some packages of soup? So you say, I'd rather have the land. Okay. So it was a chiddush of, and by the way, Rav and Abai, none of those, everyone was holding that Shavik Kesef was, that land was better than Shavik Kesef. It was only Reb Papa that turned the tables up and said that no, there's a bechina where Shavik Kesef is better, right? So there I'm agreeing with you that you could say in Svara, Runa is much better because he also holds that Shavik Kesef is, as Filu Sumin, says a Filu, even is worse than land, okay? That's so bad that you can't even give it l'chatchila. You can only give kesef b'meita, right? So afal gab that in svara Rav Huna it makes more sense. We're still going to hold like Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua because they're okay. So that's a good theory, and it's very important to say a theory because there is an afal gab here. Another simple theory would be that Rav Huna was mentioned last. Okay, in other words, he had the last word. If you have 5 people brought down in an argument, so where the Gemara ends also is important. I mean, that's just another reason, just another simple reason maybe why we should psak like Rav Huna. Now maybe we'll find out other ones, but the question has to be asked because Rav said afal gav. So good. So the deciding factor in halacha was basroi. Good. Right. Now let's read Rabbeinu Tam here.
Rabbeinu Tam pasuk Rav Huna b'dislay.
In other words, if you have again. Yeah. B'dislay what? I mean.
But if you have, in other words, you put them if you have. In other words.
If you have kesef v'meitav, you have to give it.
Well, in other words, because what he's really saying with Isla is that there's no nafkamina between Rav Huna and Rav Huna and Rav Papa and Rav Huna Rav Yeshua if he has kesef or meitav.
Sure. You mean only? What happens if he has all 3, right? If he has all 3.
All 3. If he has all 3, I don't know what does Rav Papa and Rav Huna Rav Yeshua hold that he could.
Anyone.
Yeah. That's what it sounds, right?
Yeah. That's what we're understanding. Okay, that's how they're learning. Well, definitely they're learning that way, that they're all equal. So Rav Huna, okay. So what does it mean? He holds like Rav Huna b'dislay. Okay, so b'dislay means when he has kesef, and when he has kesef or land, then you have to give it. Okay. And because of the Sefer, go ahead, continue.
Because of the Sefer HaYashar, dinim b'parayim. So this is really like Tosfos also said this, but he didn't say it's from the Sefer HaYashar. But he said there are 3 dinim in parayim. Number 1 is benazikin, which is case of a meitav kirav huna bid islay. He lets the kol mila meitavu, so it's 2 different levels. It's either kesef or meitav, and then if he doesn't have, then it's anything else.
Right.
Plus everything else could be called meitav if it's, meitav nach, meitav b'mosachriti, b'mosachriti. That is neziknei bal chayiv, which is e islay zuze le'matu lefuke el bezuzi. Kenemocha v'ksiv kaisav rabbi hotel ma'isa b'nachri hu. Avli lesli zuze le'minan zel tarach ba'isi zuze kede isa hasam. So bal chayiv, his first right is to cash zuzim.
Once he has cash, if he has meitav or any type of land or any type of shavik kesef, he must give the cash. Right. I don't care what you have. If you have land, you have shavik kesef, you must give when it comes to balchov money. Okay, if you don't have,
right.
What's if you don't have the Elay Slay number, Roman numeral 2 over there, whatever it is?
The Leslay, he doesn't have Zuzim. We don't have to tell him go and bring Zuzim. So what does he do?
You can accept the metal and accept the karka. No problem. But that's only if he doesn't have money. Okay, so in
Now,
the kid,
trust-
excuse me?
Right, if he doesn't have money, so then he just gives him a talent.
Yeah, give him a talent, or I suppose give him land too. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can give him anything, but definitely give him talent. Okay,
Right.
He can only give him a talent indefinitely when he doesn't have money.
Right.
Okay, good. And that's the no, not it's worse. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. No, that's 100%. That's good. And the lokei kshenim samechitos nami din hachi. It's the same din, and he brings a proof.
Yeah, and a lekeach who bought something b'tois is like a baal chayv. It's interesting he sticks that in. Like, there must be other types of debtors and creditors who have the din of a baal chayv, and he just decides to pick on a lekeach that was nimtza b'tois. Unless maybe it's the only one. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be very interesting. Okay. That's a very legitimate question. I mean, why he picked this one. Are these an exhaustive list? Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, the third category is pile. So a pile has a certain kayach that is expected to pay cash. He put in his day's work. He is expected at the end of the day to be able to walk home with his cash, and he could tell the balabayas, if you don't have the cash, go and sell your property and
right. Bring me money.
Bring me money.
Right. Okay, good. So that's number 2. So the first thing that the Rosh first summarizes for us. Excuse me. The Rosh brings down Rashi, right? And it says there's a machlokas here, right? I explain Rashi again it's a perish. He just explains what Rashi says about Rav Huna, right? If Kesef and Meitab, and if you don't have Kesef and Meitab, then you can give Subin. And Rashi, Rav Alfas agrees with Rashi that there's an argument here, but he doesn't end up with Rav Huna. He ends up with Rav Papa because they're Basroi. Okay.
Right.
That's why I said just maybe simply not in Svara, just because Rav Huna was the end of the end, we should hold like him. Okay, but Rav Papa says no. The rule is you go according to Basroi. So even though the last word is Rav Huna, we have to go back and hold like Rav Papa. And then we had Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam, he quotes Rabbeinu Tam, which is what we know. He's holding like Rav Huna. Okay, very good.
Right.
Notice that Rabbeinu Tam does not tell us why he's holding like Rav Huna. Okay, so that's going to be that's going to be okay. The Rif tells us why, but Rabbeinu Tam doesn't tell us why. He just says that's the halacha, and that's it. Okay, now
is that
here.
a stylistic thing?
No, it's not stylistic at all. That will lead us to the next part of the Rosh. The Rosh is bothered with that now. The Rosh is bothered with, well, why? The Rosh questions that's come up right now is why didn't Rabbeinu Tam agree with the Rif? What did he find wrong with the Rif?
Right.
You could say the last word simply, you could say the last word was Rav Huna, fine, but there's a rule that you always follow the Basroi, and the Rif said, Afal Gav, I know you might want to say the last in line was Rav Huna, but still we have a rule following the Basroi. So Rabbeinu Tam just said the halach is like Rav Huna, and he doesn't explain to us why.
Right.
Right? Now here's where the Rosh comes in, and this is what this is a question that you're forced to answer. Okay, you're forced to answer this question. Well, that's a very logical principle that we have. So what was Rabbeinu Tam's reason for not holding like the Rif? Right? It's a beautiful, it fits like a glove. I mean, the question must be asked. That's what I also want to show here, that the questions that are asked are just not the Yagdil Torah Yadir. Okay, we want to have a little credit in Olam Haba, ask some nice questions. This question has to be answered. Now, especially if you're like the Rosh, who is also, I mean, it's a halachic situation here. This is not just a question of kutshim. I mean, here we have a practical situation of paying for damages. We have a machlokis and a gemara that's not resolved, and we have now the the Rosh's Kadmonim, which is Rabbeinu Tam and the Riv, holding different positions. The Riv tells us why, no matter what reason you're going to give me, I'm going to hold like Reb Papa because he's Basroi. And Rabbeinu Tam simply, says that's not the halacha. So we have to say, Rabbeinu Tam, but what did you do with Basroi? Right?
Right.
So that's what he says right now. Let's read 3.
Okay. Umashal pasuk Rabbeinu Tam kira papa. Rav Huna ben Yeshua. Now the Eden Basrei is in light blue.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done. I only did that. I don't know what siman is. You know what I mean? I don't know if I should. I have to develop a siman where a highlight. I didn't want to use an underline because an underline usually means a link. But what can I do? We'll have to figure that one out.
Right.
All right.
No,
but anyway. Okay. What can I do?
The light blue is fine.
Okay. Good.
I mean, as long as
I just explained my legend. Okay. Let's just leave it that way. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Good. So now the question is. Now all this gray. All this gray I added in because the Rosh is talking.
Modify all the pronouns.
Yeah, exactly. The lo and him, sover. Who's sover?
Right.
Okay, so you can read the text and we can just add in the. Okay.
Davar, delay pligi adrafuna. So I see Rabbeinu Tam holds that the Papa is not arguing with Rafuna, but like astu el l'shnuye rumia dekroy hadadi, and he is only coming to answer the 2 psukim. V'hakika amar loy kasha.
Okay, but we have to go very, very slowly here because he's writing so fast that it's I did a lot of pacing back and forth to understand what he's doing, and actually
That's
this
why I'm sort of reading it without reading your grade.
Yeah. I agree, but you can read the whole thing. It doesn't matter. I don't mind, but we have to slow down and fill in the process. So again, read it through. We're gonna
have to see where he's going. In other words,
yeah, fine. He says in Darkei Gemara, read the thing 3 times before you try to put it together. V'ksiv karachmini yashiv afilu subin. So the teretz. The e. I guess you put that in mostly meitav. Yeah, keep everything in.
Afilu yayiv le subin meitavu. Meitav meitav metaltoin. Ulam emakiyas the pshudik meitav sadei yishalim the islay. By the mace of lay.
Meitav, that should be.
All right. Or with Kesav Nami, Meitav, the Ksiv, Kesav Yeshua Balav. So he's saying his first teretz is that the reason why Rabbeinu Tam is passing like is because he's saying that they're not arguing. And he's only coming to answer the stira and the psukim. And there's no kasha in the stira and the psukim. That it says Meitav and it says Yashiv. Why? Because it's just coming to say that even if he doesn't have Meitav, even if he gives him Subin, it's Meitav. And he doesn't have to give him the Meitav of Metaltalin. And really the pasuk is it's simplistic, which is says Meitav Sadeu Yishalem. So I'm okay. To me, this sounds like he's explaining Rav Huna, not Rav Papa.
1 second, I'm going to fix something up here.
Who's he explaining?
Well, exactly. Who's he explaining? So let's go. Yeah, I just wanted to change that.
He's going to give an explanation, and based on the following explanation, it's now going to be understandable to us how Rav Papa and Rav Huna aren't arguing.
Okay, so let's go slowly, first of all, okay? Right. Up to this point...
Yeah.
Okay, up to this point, we were under the assumption that everyone is arguing. Rashi said that they were arguing. The Rif said that they were arguing, right?
Right.
That means Rav Huna was arguing with Rav Papa. Okay, so now if Rev Huna and Rev Papa are not arguing, then what question have we solved? We always have to get what is the question we're trying to solve here. What difficulty do we have?
If they're not arguing,
Yeah.
Well, what would be wrong with saying they're not arguing? Then why is the Gemara mentioned Rav Huna all the way down here? It should be mentioned together with Rav Papa and Rav Huna Beis Rav Yeshua.
That's an excellent kasha. Let me be clearer. What is the Rosh? What question is the Rosh trying to answer here?
The Rosh is trying to answer why the Rabbeinu Tam paskin like one side and not the other side.
More specifically.
Oh, because he's Basroi. Okay.
What did Rabbeinu Tam do with Basroi? Right? What did he do with the rule of Basroi? The Rif was very clear. There's a rule that you're passing up. What did Rabbeinu Tam do? How could he not paskin like the Basroi? That's the Rosh's problem here.
Right.
Now, if Huna is not arguing with Reb Papa, does that solve the problem?
Yeah.
Because if there's no argument, then he's not passing like the Basroi. He's passing.
Right.
He is, in other words, he is passing like the Basroi.
Right.
But to say that, we're going to have to now say that there's two different questions being answered between Reb Papa and Reb Huna. In other words, they agree in the halacha, but they were talking about two different issues.
Right. Right.
Now that's his gaonus over here, is that he to produce now two different questions between Rav Huna and Reb Papa. Okay, so they're going to come to the questions that they're asking. Questions that they're asking are different questions, even though the result is going to be the same.
Right.
They're really not going to argue about the result, but they just had two different questions to ask. In other words, the result is the result. They both agree that Subin is only given when you don't have Kesem and Meitav, right? But we have an associated question, a different question that Papa's asking. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Right.
So now, that's why I said that this is a very, very difficult rush to crack. And by the way, some of what I'm telling you is already 700 years later, is a Nachlas David, because you could see that besides the fact that he's not spelling out all the indefinite pronouns over there, right, he's also writing so quickly that you have to fill out much more than indefinite pronouns. You have to, your head has to be in what he wants to say, okay? So first, rule number one, we know that if I ask you what's the tachlis of the Rosh is to answer the problem, what does Rabbeinu Tam do with the fact that Reb Papa is a Basroi? Answer, Reb Papa is not arguing with Rev Huna. And therefore, the fact that even Rev Huna is Pasak like the Basroi. There's no difference. If that's true, then that upsets the whole understanding that we've had up to this point, because Rashi said they're talking about the same Pesukim, the Rif said they're talking about the same Pesukim, and now you're telling me that that Reb Papa's doing something else. Okay, so now, if that's true, first he'll explain to me, well, what was Reb Papa doing? Getting back to your question. Now he's going to explain to us what Rev Papa was doing. Okay, not what Rev Huna was doing. Okay, so let's go. The Sover Rabbeinu Tam, I added that in. That Reb Papa, first of all, was not arguing Reb Papa. Asu, that's plural. Who?
Okay.
So who?
How would you say it in singular? I guess you would say us.
Asay. Asay, right?
Right.
Okay, so asu means them, in plural. So they, Reb Papa and Reb Huna Reb Shua, because you have to remember that there's two people over there, even though I just wrote Reb Papa, okay, because I just want to get the two Reb Hunas mixed up. But they, Reb Papa and Reb Huna Reb Shua, were not coming, Ella, to do what? L'shenuye rumaya dekro hadadi. They were talking about the conflict of the two Pesukim, one to the other. Rev Huna was not talking about that conflict. Okay? Why? Because, as far as this answer is concerned, it's much better to say because Rev Huna was talking about the Mishnah, and it's much better to say Rev Huna Omer.
Right.
He was talking about the Mishnah. He wasn't talking about the Pesukim. Okay? So since they had different subject matters, they can agree. They just, Rev Papa is talking about the Pesukim, Rev Huna is talking about the Mishnah, and there's no conflict. They all hold the halach exactly the same way.
Right.
Okay, so let's get this very carefully. V'lo aser Rev Papa Rev Huna Rev Shua elishuna rumi dekro adadi. As now, remember Rashi, the Rif said no. Rev Huna is also talking about the rumi kroi, right? Says the Rosh, no. According to Rabbeinu Tam, that's not true. Rev Huna is not talking about the Rumi Yidakroy, he's talking Mishnah, and it's only Rev Papa and Rev Huna that are talking about the two Pesukim, right?
Right.
Now, exactly was there Rumia? Now, wait a minute. We learned that Rumia of Rev Papa and Rev Huna Rev Shua was that Kesef, Shavik Kesef, and Metalton are all equal.
All equal, right.
Now, if you're going to tell me that really they agree with Rev Papa, with Rev Huna, you're going to have to say that they also hold that you can only give Subin when you don't have Kesef and Meitav. Correct?
Right.
So then what problem was there between the Pesukim already? Why should the Pesukim be a problem? There's no problem. Pasuk says Meitav lechatchila, and the other pasuk says Yoshev b'diavad. So where's the Rumia? Why does one have to conflict with the other? Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So now the Rosh is going to tell us a new question that Reb Papa had. Granted that you can only give Subin when you don't have Meitav. But I have a question, says Reb Papa. Okay? So let's read this in. It's very, very subtle. Now, so Lo Kash, and I added Rumia de Kroy. Okay.
That would have been the kasha.
Yes, but now,
I don't think that was when we understood the kasha, no?
Yeah, but now that's why I added in my gray. Why did I add in my gray here? Okay, let's do the teretz. The teretz with three little words will clarify. Teretz. What was their teretz?
The E. The E lost the meitav sada. Afilu yav le subin meitavu.
The.
That the ein tzarach litin la meitav metalflin.
Stop. Here's the whole key to the piece.
Right, so if they didn't have meitav sadeh, they could even give subin, which is meitav, and they don't have to give the meitav metalflin.
Why? You see, so much is left out here. Why? Because Reb Papa, in other words, I'm going to spell it out here. You see, the question is that lichatchila. Reb Papa knows that lichatchila you have to give kesef and meitav, and only if you don't have kesef and meitav do you give subin, right? He agrees with Reb Papa. But the question is, lama? Why, when it comes to karka, lichatchila, you have to give the best, and why, grant b'diavad, you're going to give subin, shavik kesef, only b'diavad? But why there did the Torah allow you to give the worst? how come you don't give b'di'evid the best of your Shavah Kesef? That's the question that they were answering. In other words, the Rosh shoves in the Shita of Rav Huna into Rav Papa, and he changes the question according to Rav Huna's halacha. Meaning, okay, and that's what he did. This is Guyona stuff. I mean, this is big. You know what I mean? This would take us around 250 years to figure out. No, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do a thing like that. I don't think. This is Gaona stuff. I mean, who would ever think of doing such a thing? Okay, he has a problem. Why not the Basroi? So he says, you know something? Maybe Rabbeinu Tam holds that Reb Huna doesn't argue Reb Papa. What? You mean Reb Papa holds sheet to Reb Huna? How is that? Oh, I'll tell you how. Because why lechatchila do we worry about meitav karka? And granted, b'di'evid, when it comes to Shavah Kesef, do we not worry about meitav karka? What's the difference? In other words, the Pesukim don't clash with each other. I understand why you give Shavah Kesef only when you don't have karka. That's okay. That's fine with me. Karka is better than Shavah Kesef, so you give it lechatchila. But how come we don't have the same stringency b'di'evid when we're giving metaltalin to give the best of your metaltalin? How come you can give subin? Why? It was that question that Reb Papa was answering. And his answer was, meaning that there's no problem in metaltalin b'di'evid that you have to give the best of metaltalin because you'll always get your money back. But there's always a problem with land that if you're going to give land, even lachatchila, you may not get your money, so the Torah said best.
Right.
Wow. It took me a lot of pacing back and forth. No, because the words are so brief, you know what I mean? Right. Now, here's the other thing where I just wanted to bring out. I mean, there's this stuff I'm sure you know, but it doesn't matter. I said I have to, who knows how millions of people will listen to this. But whatever. The point is that there's a lot of thinking to do. The words are very brief and presume a very, very intelligent reader, a reader that's very much involved. Like you're talking to the Rosh now. I mean, he expects that you're on his level. So he doesn't have to say much. He just has to give these few little words which open up the piece. But for us, the reader, especially, how many 800 years or something later, so the reader who is not that involved just has to think about what is the aim and how is he trying to accomplish that aim. And the truth is that this is what the people are going to be talking about. They're going to have to put together what he says. So, and then they're going to go further. This is going to be the basis of our piece, because once we understand what the Rosh says, he's really going to be since he's trying to decide between If and the Rabbeinu Tam. So we're going to see this ramifications going to the Shulchan Aruch all the way down to the Achronim and the Rosh Hashivas. They're all being involved in these things, but the pieces won't change, but the thinking will, the analysis will. So this is a very, very critical Rosh here. This is a critical Rosh because he's now explaining Rabbeinu Tam. And the last piece that he's going to do, the next piece he's going to do, is then Mimachriya. He's going to bring a raya for the Rif from another Gemara completely. And that, I don't know if you could do in 150 years, or 250 years, may take you around 500, to see his raya. And once you see it, it's beautiful. But it's like a different Gemara. It's not a different Gemara. It's just it's a different place completely. It's not here. So he takes a raya from another place, and he's going to be Machriya according to the Rif. Then all the people are going to chime in. What do you mean? Blah, 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 blah. And there's going to be a big, big explosion here. This is the beginning of a tremendous, tremendous gewaltic explosion in the whole Beis Midrash. This fight between the Rif and Rabbeinu Tam and the Rosh, who puts himself right in the middle of it. So we should really, we have to be very, very careful about what this particular Rosh is doing. Okay, so what is the first move here? The move of the Rosh is to get rid of the problem of Basroi by saying that Reb Papa agrees with Reb Huna. If Reb Papa agrees with Reb Huna, everyone agrees. There's no Basroi because there's no argument. So if that's true, then what is Reb Papa saying? We thought Reb Papa is talking about the conflict of the two Pesukim, right? So he's saying he's not really talking about the conflict. He agrees how to solve the two Pesukim. He agrees with Reb Huna that Shaveh Kesef and Meitav do not conflict, because Meitav you have to give L'chatchila, and Subin, you can only give B'diavad. So they really don't conflict. I mean, that's how we're going to put the two things together. One's talking L'chatchila, Meitav, and B'diavad, Shaveh Kesef Afil Sub. So they don't conflict. But Reb Papa has another question, which is called a Lama question. Why? Why is the Torah makpid on land, L'chatchila, to give the best, and Shaveh Kesef, all of a sudden you're not makpid? So that was the question that Reb Papa had, and he answered that really there's no such thing as gradation in Subin, because we only interested, are you going to get your money back? So Subin, you'll always get your money back. If you don't find it here, you'll find it somewhere else. But in land, even though you give it before Subin, it doesn't matter. With land, always has a problem that you have a very few customers. So there is makpid on land. So according to that answer, we have no more problem with Basroi, because Reb Huna and Reb Papa agree, but they're talking about two different issues completely. One is the issue of what do you give first and second? That was Reb Huna's problem. You give first, Meitav and Kesef, and then you only give B'diavad, Shaveh Kesef. And Reb Papa agreed with that. His only problem was why? Why wasn't the Torah makpid on Meitav when you give it even B'diavad? And then he answered how he answered. So that's how the Rosh first defends Rabbeinu Tam, his problem about Basroi. Okay, let's read the second one. Let's read the second answer, and we have to go back, believe me. Because we didn't finish this whole thing. I'm going to go back. Let's just read the second answer to get the pligi, and then we have to go back very carefully. This is a very, very delicate piece. It's brain surgery here. Okay. Inami pligi adadi.
Inami pligi adadi. They do argue. So I think
Yes.
we have a question. If they do argue, why is Rabbeinu Tam paskening like Rav Papa and Rav Huna Rav Yehoshua?
Why doesn't he?
Why doesn't he pass Rav Papa and why does he pass Rav Huna?
They're Basroi.
Right. With the cover of Ashi, Shani Rav Huna Bachleina, the Ihu Kodim Rav Papa Rav Huna Rav Yehoshua Chashuv Leikar. So in other words, Rav Ashi felt that Rav Huna was Ikar. By putting him last, that shows us that he's more important, or if that's the right word to use, important, or more. I don't know what's the right word.
He's the halacha. Put it that way.
Correct. Right.
When it comes to halacha, he is the ikar. Right.
Right.
So. So we said this is the second answer. That really let's abandon this track that Reb Papa agrees with Reb Huna. He doesn't. They really are arguing just like the Rif says, like Rashi says, and the Rabbeinu Tam agrees with that. So if he agrees with that, how do you get rid of? Why is he paskin against the Basroi? Because there's another Basroi. Who's more Basroi than Reb Papa?
Who's more Basroi than Rav Papa? Rav Huna. Rav Huna. I don't know who's more Basroi than Rav Papa.
The redactor of the Talmud. Do you see my saying here?
Oh, Rav Ashi. Okay.
Rav Ashi. Now we know Mandakash made Rav Ashi.
Right.
We never even thought he was in the bowl game. Right?
Right. Right.
So the Russ says, but wait a minute, he's the Masader of the Shas, right? How come he didn't put Rav Huna where he belongs before Rav Papa? How come he put him last when he should have been the first position? If they're arguing, bring Rav Huna first, or at least bring him before Rav Papa, okay? Bring him before Rav Papa. And then talk about Rav Papa. And they would know we go according to the last authority. So since he brought Rav Papa place, shoved him all the way to the end, so he gave him the last word, so to speak. So Rav Ashi, it's Rav Ashi, who is the Messiah of the Shas, purposely took Rav Huna out of place and put him at the end to show us that he's the Ikar.
Right.
So he said. That's the second teretz of the Rosh. Okay. Now, now we're going to. Yeah, we're going to stop. No. I just wanted. I knew we were going to stop, so I just stopped here. Okay. So we're going to have to go this very carefully.
Right.
So the second teretz is what?
First teretz again.
Yeah, we have to go over the first teretz very clearly.
They're arguing.
And why did Rabbeinu Tam paskin against the Svara of Basroi of the Rif? How could he paskin like Rav Huna? What about the Basroi?
Well, he's passing like all of them, according to the first teretz.
Yes.
According to the second teretz.
Oh,
passing like Rav Ashi.
Rav Ashi, who put Rav Huna out of order.
Right.
Okay. So and we have to go over this very carefully because there's a beautiful depth in that. In the middle piece, we just glanced over it. We're about Pashtus to Crow and all that stuff. We have to go through it again, and then when we really have to get this Rosh very, very solid because he's going to be, as I said, the battleground for everybody that follows. You're either going to like the Rosh or you're not like him. You know what I mean? Of course, we're going to have some very interesting people who are going to defend. We have to defend the Rabbeinu Tam. But this is going to be the as far as the real action, because the Rambam and the Ramah, they have a whole different sheet altogether. So we're going to they're also going to be very interesting, but they're not going to be in this gutsy problem here between the Rif and Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. So we're going to, Bekitzer, well, let's go over this again. Okay, maybe have some time, just review it and say it over and just get it crystal clear, and then we'll analyze it, and after we're comfortable with it, we'll do the third part, which is this fantastic proof that the Rosh is going to bring in favor of Rav Alfas from the Southern Gemara. Okay?
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I picked this piece because it does vibrate through all the generations. Not every piece is like this, but this piece really is, you can really see each generation handling what they handle, why they say it, and how everyone else is going to react to it in the later generations. Okay, so we have a lot of things to, and then, we have a lot of things to look forward to. Okay, have a great day. Have a great day. Call too.
Okay, you too. Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Goodbye now.